Greetings, dear viewer, and welcome to a special for the night of All Hallows Eve. In the spirit of Halloween and scaring ourselves shitless, I've picked out some of my personal favourite games meant to scare and disturb, and put them into an obligatory list format. So buckle in and grab pumpkin pie, then plaster your eyeballs open for my top 5 horror games. Number 5. Resident Evil Remake. Starting off our list at number 5 is Resident Evil Remake, in no small part due to the role it played in my love of horror and survival horror games today, yet it does still hold up to many recent attempts in the horror genre. With fantastic visuals, both in style and fidelity, this is one classic horror game not to be missed. While the original Resident Evil has been credited as a turning point in survival horror, as a refinement of the formula that Alone in the Dark provided, the remake did much the same thing for the original Resident Evil, with updated visuals allowing for more darkness and scares, more gore, more rooms, and an entirely much bigger, creepier game in total. Not to mention changing many things to keep a fan of the series so far on their toes. While when I was younger I barely managed to get through a few rooms without turning the game off, in later years as I went back to it I started to appreciate the real tension of the game's tight corridors and incredibly frustrating controls, combining that with the scarcity of ammo and the toughness of the enemies to create some truly heart-pounding moments, just keeping yourself a hair's breadth from being zombie chow. While few people will call it a very scary game, it is still a great example of early survival horror, and has some great features that modern games sometimes seem to forget. You know, like not having an AI partner ruining all the scares. Fucking Resi 5. Also worth noting, this game is wholly responsible for my hatred of zombie dogs, so there's that too. Fuck zombie dogs. Number 4. Corpse Party. At number 4 is Corpse Party for the PSP. While not as graphically impressive as some of the games on this list, don't let that fool you from thinking that this game is anything but an utterly harrowing experience. The premise is simple. A group of high school students and their teacher mess with the occult and find themselves trapped in a twisted version of their school and have to find a way out. But what starts as a somewhat generic premise very quickly proves itself something special in the end of the first chapter as the girl you've been exploring with for the last half hour hangs herself in the girls' toilet, immediately letting you know that no, not everyone is getting out of this alive, and boy does it stick to that philosophy. No one in this game is safe, which makes you relate to them and want to save them all the more, making it far, far worse when the inevitable does happen. This is one of those times when the lack of detail and graphics absolutely adds to the horrifying nature of the atmosphere of the game, as you're forced to picture the gruesome things happening to the students, and the terrible things to the people that went through it before you, described to you in the form of notes. Almost certainly the best aspect of this game, however, is the sound design and voice acting. The positional sound can and frequently does make it sound like someone is breathing right down the back of your neck. This, coupled with Japanese voice actors who sound genuinely terrified, makes for some true skin-crawling moments. This is one game that will stay with you when you go to sleep. Number 3. Silent Hill 2. While Resident Evil refined the survival horror genre, some would say Silent Hill perfected it. Genre semantics aside, Silent Hill 2 is without doubt one of the all-time best, combining a disturbing story with unsettling enemies and sparse resources to make a tense, creepy experience that doesn't disappoint. The lack of ammo and being forced to use melee weapons, getting in close to your foes, keeps the tension high and your skin crawling, without having to resort to jump scares. The bit of story is relentless as well. By the time you get to the end, you can't help but wonder why in the hell you even want to save the guy you're playing as, finding out the things he's done and the person that he is that he'd forgotten. By the end, you wonder if he really deserves the redemption that you're trying to give him. Assuming you don't get the suicide ending, it might actually be worse. And lest we forget, Pyramid Head. Seriously, just look at this guy. Seeing him the first few times is terrifying enough that you know you don't want to have a personal encounter with him. But oh no, you just have to be locked in a room with this fucker. Can you kill him? No. Can you get away? No. Is there anything you can do besides run in circles trying not to get murdered until he leaves of his own accord? No. Fuck this guy. But also thank you for letting me want to curl up into a small ball whenever he's near. So basically, depressing and Pyramid Head. That's why I like it, I think. Number 2. Amnesia: The Dark Descent. I doubt this game needs any introduction, especially if you're watching a top 5 horror games video on YouTube. Just saying. This game nails atmosphere and tension, with no way to fight the monsters that stalk you through the decrepit castle as you try to piece together what happened and where you factor into the atrocities committed there. And oh dear God, the monsters. It would have been bad enough simply with the way they look and being defenseless against them, but even looking at them drives you slowly, crushingly insane, drawing them towards you and crippling your attempts to sneak by or run. While there being a reasonable amount of jump scares, they don't feel cheap as they could have done, as most are part of your own fractured psyche jumping at shadows that dissipate as you look closer, driving you deeper into the darkest depths of your mind at every turn. The story, told through notes scattered around the castle, slowly unravels the nature of the creation of the monsters that stalk you, and the twisted plans that preceded your journey as a newly formed amnesiac, creating the feeling that you're never really quite in control of your own actions, as if they had been predetermined by the previous occupants. This is another game that can grab and hold you on a psychological story level, as well as heart-pounding gameplay, and its inclusion in this list, while typical, is a must. Number 1. Fatal Frame 2. What? What's this? Fatal Frame 2 scarier than Amnesia? Well, hear me out. Fatal Frame 2 is almost certainly my number 1 as a whole in scary games, in part to the unsettling Japanese imagery, but mostly due to the core game mechanic, the camera obscura. While the story is certainly not as disturbing or horrifying as other games on this list, it certainly makes up for it in this one simple way: it makes you scare yourself. From the environmental self-scares, such as making you look through your camera in a small area where you know the scare is coming, but you still have to check, just for curiosity's sake. But more importantly, the base combat mechanic of the game. Want to get rid of that freaky looking crawling ghost so you can move on? Sure, go right ahead, take pictures of it. Want to do it well? Oh, well, for that you have to let it get right up in your face before you snap her. When you can see the pain behind your eyes, that's when you can snap her and harm her. Wow, thanks game, just what I always wanted. To be within makeout distance of a chick whose eyeballs are hanging out of her nostrils. Thanks. Spectral spit swapping aside, the environments around the town do an excellent job of letting you know that you do not want to be here. Between the doll rooms, dark underbasements, and the noose room, fuck that room by the way, there is definitely not happy fun times to be had here. Amazingly, the addition of a partner in the form of Mio's twin sister Mayu actually serves as an extra way to scare the player at times when she's present. It becomes rapidly apparent that she is not entirely herself and quite possibly being controlled by the ghosts that haunt the town, leaving you paranoid with no safe place of reference, clutching your camera and trying desperately not to walk dead into another ghost that's waiting for you to do just that. This is one of the few games that genuinely made me want to stop playing because of how terrifying it was, and my number 1 spot it takes.
So there we have it. I hope you enjoyed our foray into the frightening, our trip to the terrifying. Perhaps you found something to try the next time you're home alone. But alas, the hour dictates it is time for us to part. So farewell, dear viewer, and I look forward to when we next meet. Catch you later.
Creepy fucking shit.
Huh?
I love his creepy as fucking shit.
That's one thing I could do, it's even fucking laughs. That was alright, that'll do.